I lost my mom in 2022, but the thing that gives me peace and joy was that my mom seen me graduate from university. She seen me get a college diploma. She seen me be a leader. She seen me change my life. And she used to say, "You're my champion." And I always tell people, like, there's nothing more powerful than making our immigrant parents proud. You know, sometimes we take for granted. We're in Canada, where some of us are born here, and it's easy to just get caught up in whatever we see in our neighborhoods or amongst our friend group. And I'm like, man, our parents did the most to be here, to give us an opportunity for a better life. So we got to maximize that opportunity. And that's the message I try to tell young people, that like, hey man, like your friends are gonna come and go, you know? Listen to your parents, make them proud. We don't know how long we'll have them for. I had my mom for 27 years, you know? I lost her when I was 27, but she gave me more love than any human could ever give somebody, you know? And I'm at peace because I made her proud. And that's my story. Hi, everybody. I'm Ronny Musikitele. I'm a high performance culture coach. I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm a sport management professional. My journey started in Montreal. I'm born in Montreal. I'm the youngest of three brothers. I'm actually premature. So from the moment I was born, I was in a rush to accomplish things. And growing up in Montreal, I had a wonderful mother. I had a father, obviously, and three older brothers. We moved to Ottawa, Ontario when I was about 5 years old. And Ottawa was a culture shock, you know. I'm from a very tight-knit community in Montreal, a lot of Congolese people. And when I moved to Ottawa, it was like a culture change, right? You see so many different cultures. And we didn't know at the time, but we soon found out that we lived in the hood. For those who are familiar with Ottawa, Ontario, I grew up in Ramsey. It's in the west side of Ottawa. It's close to Bayshore, for those who don't know. And I remember when we first moved in, me and my brothers were a little confused because they're like, okay, here, you can't wear blue. You can't really skate. We come from Montreal. We loved hockey. And they're like, people don't skateboard here. We rep red, kind of like signifying the blood gang. So very quick, we had to adapt. You know, coming from a household with three boys, it wasn't easy, but my older brother kind of paved the way for me and my younger brother, and my older brother, sorry, to walk smoothly and walk in the neighborhood stress-free. But there I was, you know, 6 years old, surrounded by gangs, drugs, violence. And it didn't take too long after where I realized I was okay, wow, okay, this is really a tough neighborhood. You kind of have to fit in. So that's what I did, obviously. You know, a lot of my friends were from the neighborhood, but I had a great balance because I went to a wonderful elementary school where everybody from my school wasn't necessarily from my neighborhood. So that really helped me kind of see two different lifestyles, the suburban life, and when I got back to the neighborhood, the street life. And there was one thing that I knew that always kept us young people together, out of trouble, and that was the Boys and Girls Club. That was right up the neighborhood from my neighborhood. And, you know, the Boys and Girls Club was a place where everybody started young, innocent, and just wanted to play basketball, go swimming, play pool, and so many fun games that was available to us as kids. And then I started noticing this trend that was going on in the neighborhood. As soon as people would become teenagers and they would leave the Boys and Girls Club, they started getting involved with the life of crime. They started getting into trouble. And I just kind of seen it happening from generation to generation, where we all started young. We all started at the Boys and Girls Club. And around 14, 15 years old, as soon as you leave the Boys and Girls Club, that's when the majority of young black men start selling drugs. And then I just seen that happening. And then I kind of had a moment in my life where my friends, the ones I grew up with, we were reaching that age, and a lot of my friends kind of started taking on that street life path. And I had a moment because I love my mom so much. She worked so hard, and she sacrificed everything for me and my brother to be in this position that we are today. So I felt like I owed it to her. And I seen so many of my friends going to jail, some even passing away. So I had to make a decision at a very young age where I asked myself, like, okay, do I want to follow the rest of my friends, take part in these kind of activities that was going around in the neighborhood. And that's when it all came. I still remember the day that my life changed, February 12th, 2012. My older brother, knowing that I was a big Kobe Bryant fan, he decided to get me Lakers tickets. So here I was, 16 years old, kind of dibble and dabbing between wanting to get approval in the streets from my neighborhood, but also wanting to make my mom proud. But that moment absolutely changed my life. I went to the ACC at the time, and I got to see Kobe Bryant play in person. And I not only got to see him play in person, but he hit a game-winning shot. And when he hit that game-winning shot, I'm telling you, it was like going to the movies and you seeing your superhero in person, and he actually like conquers everything. He made the entire crowd go quiet. Everybody was amazed by his buzzer beater. And for me, something happened that day where I was at the arena and I'm like, man, I've never been a part of an atmosphere like this. So that's when I'm like, you know what? We love sports. We grew up with basketball. How about I make this my reality? So as I'm in the arena, 16 years old, I'm just looking around and I'm seeing, okay, these are the broadcasters. These are the coaches. There's assistant coaches. I see a strength and conditioning guy on the bench. I've seen so many different people. And I just had like a light bulb moment hit my mind. And I was like, okay, what do I have to do to make this my reality? How could being a part of this atmosphere be my everyday life? And from that day forward, I decided that I'm going to work in sports. So what I did is I went back to school the next day and I told my guidance counselor, I said, hey, what would it take to go to university? And she looked at me and she laughed. She's like, Ronnie, you want to go to university? It's impossible. And I was like, what do you mean it's impossible? She's like, you've never taken an academic class in your life. How do you expect to get into university? And I was like, okay, well, let's just say I gave myself the best chance possible. What would I have to do? So she's like, okay, I'll tell you what. You're going into grade 12 next year. You have to go take a summer school class of a grade 10 English academic class. In first semester of your grade 12, you have to take a grade 11 English academic class. And the last semester of your grade 12 year, you have to take a grade 12 English academic class. And you have to take a night class to give yourself a chance. So after that game, I just went and I started doing research. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do to work in sports? I started Googling sport management, basketball jobs, and things just started clicking. And I noticed that the majority of people who worked in my industry had a high level of education. And that's why I went to my guidance counselor and told her I wanted to go to university. So there I was having to go take summer school. And while I'm in school, my friends are getting active. I was the youngest in my friend group. So a lot of them already was full out in the streets selling drugs. So I was dibble and dabbing, not necessarily like in the streets, but very loyal guy. So I love hanging with my friends. But I slowly started to see like, man, if I keep hanging around these people, I don't know if I'm going to make it to university because I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be caught at the wrong time, wrong place at the wrong time and, have something happen to me. So I went to summer school. I go take a grade 10 English academic class, like my guidance counselor told me. And I come back, started grade 12. And I'm like, hey, miss, I did my summer school class. And she's like, I'm so sorry, Ronnie. You didn't get a 75, so I can't put you in that class. And I'm like, I did not go to summer school for no reason. And she's like, I'm so sorry. If you want, you should look at the job market or colleges or CJEBs. But I just don't think you're qualified to go to university. So that's where you have to have those relationships with people and, be vulnerable. Because it was the first time where I was like, you know what, let me be vulnerable. During high school, coming from the neighborhood, we got judged. And looking back, I don't know if they judged us in the wrong way because we weren't the greatest kids, But at the same time, we were still young and innocent. So for me, it's like, don't count a kid out because of where he's from. If I go in a neighborhood and they tell us you can't wear blue, we rep red here. Obviously, I'm going to wear red. But what happened is as I'm wearing red and I'm coming to school, they're associating me with the blood gang. But they don't understand the realities of our neighborhood. Like, you cannot not do those things. You know what I mean? Like, it's dangerous if you come in a neighborhood and you're wearing blue or you're not representing where you're from. So we took pride in representing where we're from. But taking pride in representing your neighborhood the school system's going to look at you like, you guys got to get the hell out of here. So that was kind of like something we had to juggle. And I don't want to say we got fairly judged, but at the same time, we were young. We were just trying to fit in and get approval from our neighborhood to walk safely and kind of do what the codes of the neighborhood were. So I get vulnerable. I go see my principal, and I said, "Hey, miss, listen, all my friends graduated. You know the realities of where I'm from. I just want to give myself a chance to make it into university. Like I said, I'm the youngest of three boys. My brothers didn't get a chance to, go to university. So there was a lot of pressure put on my parents that like, hey, you're our last hope, man. If you don't go to university, then like we might look at it like we failed." So I kind of had that pressure and that burden that like, man, like I got to represent my mom. I got to show her that like you did it, like the cards weren't easy, but you work magic and I got to make you proud. So I go see my principal. I'm vulnerable with her. And I was like, please, I just need a chance. And she's like, okay, come with me. She walked to the guidance counselor and she's like, put Ronnie in his academic class. And she walked out. And sometimes when I explain this story, I get emotional because that moment changed my life. I got into my academic English class and I started learning like that I had a passion for writing. Academic class is a lot different than applied classes. I don't know how it works now, but back in my days, there was academic classes and applied classes. Academic was if you want to go to university. Applied is if you want to go to colleges. Two completely different atmosphere. And I'm somebody who goes off energy. So if I'm in an energy with people who kind of don't care, I won't care. But because I was in that academic class and I was with people who were like focused, locked in, that energy transpired to me. So I started getting really good grades. And before you know it, I'm just getting 80s and 90s. And I had a really successful semester one. And then semester two came, my guidance counselor was still hating. She's like, I don't know if there's space for you to go in the writer's craft class. You should go take gym. And I'm like, why would I take a gym class if that's not an academic class? Again, luckily I did good in my first semester, so the teacher vouched for me. And he's like, I would love Ronnie in my class. Got into his class, did really well. And a miracle happened. At the end of my first semester of grade 12, I got a letter from Carleton University saying that I got approved to go to Carleton. And man, that was like a miracle, from never taking an academic class to just putting my heart and trying to getting into university. That was everything and more I could have ever wished for. So that was it. I had the chance to get away from the neighborhood. The beautiful thing about Carleton, it was so far from my neighborhood that's what I needed. I didn't want to be around the crowd of bad people and bad influences. So I got accepted to Carleton. And again, I did a lot of research. Before getting into university, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. That little boy in February 12, 2012, who went to see that Lakers game, I wanted his dream to come true. So I did research, like I said, and I Googled and I emailed and I even got a Twitter just to send messages to people who work in the NBA. And there's this one woman I messaged. I said, hey, how did you get your job working in the NBA? She told me I got a high level of education. I did a lot of volunteer work. I left people with a good impression of me. And I worked very hard. So when she told me that, I felt like I had a framework. It's like, okay, well, if I want to make it into sports, if I want to work in sport, I need to leave people with a good impression. I need to do a lot of volunteer work, and I need a high level of education. So the first part was checked. I got accepted to Carleton. So the next part was leave people with a good impression and do a lot of volunteer work. So as soon as I got to Carleton, I didn't waste no time. I messaged Basketball Buzz magazine and I told them, hey, I would love to write. And connections is everything. Turned out the owner who ran the basketball magazine was my childhood friend's uncle. So he hired me just off the strength that he seen me grow up, and I started covering basketball. So I wrote articles about student athletes across Canada. I covered university basketball. I covered Carleton University. And then something happened where I was like, okay, if I write about the NBA, LeBron doesn't necessarily care. He already has 100,000 people writing about him. So I was like, let me do something different. I coached. I went back and I started coaching my high school basketball team when I got to university. And I was like, what about if I write a story about basketball in Ottawa? I feel like that would be a lot more impactful to write about local athletes than write about NBA players who already have hundreds of people covering them. And I told my team, I was like, okay, guys, if you guys have a good season, I'm going to write an article about you guys. We had a great season. I wrote an article, and that's when a shift happened in my heart. Because it wasn't about me when I wrote the article. I saw the power of storytelling, where people were sharing the story and people felt so empowered. And for me, my mission was always like, man, what did my friends need when we were growing up? You know, how could I have prevented young people turning out kind of like my friends did, seeing that the streets doesn't have to be your path you take. And I knew everybody loved sports. I knew everybody loved basketball or football. And my thing was, okay, well, what could I do to celebrate these young kids who play sports, to let them know that, like, hey, even if you don't make it professionally, because quite frankly, 1% make it professionally, you could still feel empowered. You could still feel the joy. You could still be celebrated. And that's how I transform, my love for writing for myself to knowing that I can serve through writing. I can empower people through writing. And I fell in love with storytelling from that point on. And then, again, I made it known what I wanted to do. So when I was in Carleton, I messaged my school and I was like, hey, I love basketball. I love to tell stories. Is there any opportunities? And they're like, we'll let you know. We'll let you know. Eventually, they're like, hey, Ronnie, U Sports messaged us and they want somebody to tell a story about Keza Keene, who's playing in the FISU games. It's like an international game where university players go to, and his sister previously played in it. Would you be interested in writing that story? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my moment. I get to write for the best basketball school in Canada, being Carleton. And this article will be published in U Sports so every universities can see it. And I was like, okay, this is my chance. This is my open door. And ironically, I was in Toronto that summer covering the Nike Crown League. And guess who's at the tournament? Keza Keene, the one they asked me to write the story about. And I went up to him and I'm like, hey, they asked me to write a story about you. I write the story about Keza. I messaged him and I was like, hey, would you be interested in me doing a video so I can interview your sister and I can interview your dad? And he's like, definitely. So I messaged my school and I'm like, would you guys be okay with me doing a video? And they're like, hey, we've never had a video done before, but go for it. I was like, all right. And I saw someone in Toronto. I was like, hey, I want to do a story on Keza. Would you be interested in helping me put a video together? And he's like, definitely. I hired a cameraman. We took some B-roll footages of Keza at the Nike Crown League while he was playing. I interviewed his sister. I interviewed his dad. I interviewed him. The story was really well received. My school loved it. They published it all over social media. But the best thing that happened was U Sports liked it so much that they're like, hey, would you like to tell stories for us? And I was like, definitely. And they're like, okay, well, throughout the year, we'll send you different topics and you can write stories on student athletes across Canada. And I was like, wow. There I was 3-4 years ago in high school, not even knowing what I wanted to do, being a poor student, never even taking an academic class, to now, because somebody believed in me, to put me in those academic classes in high school, to now writing stories for student athletes across Canada. And I did that for a number of years. U Sports and me had a great relationship until this day, actually. And again, the story was so well received that the women's basketball team came up to me and they're like, hey, we saw your video. Would you like to do a documentary series for the women's basketball team? I'm like, definitely. So I did like a show that I produced and I created for the Carleton Ravens women's basketball team called Ravens Nest All Access. Again, it was wonderful. I got a chance to be backstage, to even go to some players' houses, interview them, to go to the locker room and take some stories and interview players, to bring them to studios. And I felt so fulfilled, you know, because although I wasn't an athlete, I felt like I was. You know, I was a part of the team. The men's team even had me come be their video coordinator, take their stats down. And that's what it's all about, you know. for me, it's like once you know what you want to do, everything opens up. And I was fortunate enough to know what I wanted to do since seeing that game. And that's what I try to tell young people, that it all starts with a dream. You need to know what's your why. My why was I wanted young black people and young kids in general to know that because you don't make it in sports, it doesn't mean your life is over. There's other ways you can make it. And that's why I pursued that sport management career, because I know so many young immigrants love sports, to show them that there's different avenues within the sport industry. And fast forward today, I'm a freelance producer with the Toronto Raptors and the Toronto Maple Leaf. So anytime there's commercials or short stories, they call me and I help on set. And I got a chance to meet amazing pro players who play for both teams, do stories with them. And I also work for FIFA. So I work for Sport Canada's FIFA team, where we're helping put together the FIFA World Cup coming to Canada. And but through all of that, I volunteered. I left people with a good impression. I learned. I listened. I still remember what that lady told me when I was in high school about what she did to work in the NBA. So she gave me the framework. And that's what I try to do today. Although I love working for FIFA, although I love working for the Raptors and the Toronto Maple Leaf, I will say my favorite thing to do is going into schools and speaking to young people and letting them know that I'm not special, I'm not smarter than them. The only thing that differentiates me and other people was that I knew what I wanted to do. And knowing what I wanted to do, I knew what I had to stay away from and what I had to fill my mind with. I had to cut off some friends. I had to cut off the majority of my friends, to be honest. And because they were choosing a lifestyle and I was choosing another lifestyle. And I lost my mom in 2022. But the thing that gives me peace and joy was that my mom seen me graduate from university. She's seen me get a college diploma. She's seen me be a leader. She's seen me change my life. And she used to say, "You're my champion." And I always tell people, like, there's nothing more powerful than making our immigrant parents proud. You know, sometimes we take for granted. We're in Canada, where some of us are born here, and it's easy to just get caught up in whatever we see in our neighborhoods or amongst our friend group. And I'm like, man, our parents did the most to be here, to give us an opportunity for a better life. So we got to maximize that opportunity. And that's the message I try to tell young people, that like, hey, man, like your friends are going to come and go, you know? Listen to your parents, make them proud. We don't know how long we'll have them for. I had my mom for 27 years, you know? I lost her when I was 27, but she gave me more love than any human could ever give somebody, you know? And I'm at peace because I made her proud. And that's my story, you know? It's resilience, it's hard work, it's listening to my mom, wanting to make her proud, having that support system, and being vulnerable. You know, that message when I spoke to my principal and she believed in me and she brought me to the guidance counselor, those little things changed my life. And when I got my bachelor's degree from Carleton University, after messaging my mom, do you want to know who's the first person I messaged? My high school principal. And I said, "Miss, I just want to tell you thank you for believing me. I want to let you know I got my bachelor's degree." And she cried. She cried. And I ran into her a few years after, and guess what she did? She's like, "Ronny, your story's so inspiring. I want you to come back to the high school, speak to every single grade, and I want you to speak to every teacher." So I had the chance to go back to my former high school to speak to every single grade. And when I went to this school, I told them this story that when I was in grade 7, they pulled me out of my class. And they're like, "Hey, Ronny, you learn too slow. We're going to put you in a classroom with 4 or 5 people." And my classroom was on the left side and every other classroom was on the right side. So I had to wait till the bell rings so the hallway clears so people don't have to see me walk the opposite side, you know? But all those things, looking back, made me who I am today. You know, sometimes people go through hardships or, you know, get mistreated or have bad grades and they think that's the end of the road. When I look back, I needed all those things. Like all those things empowered me to be in the position that I am today. You know, like I can confidently say, people used to laugh and say, "Ronny goes to the retarded class. Ronny goes to the dumb class. You know, Ronny needs extra help." But like today I live my dream. You know, I get to wake up and my 9 to 5 is to go help set up the biggest FIFA World Cup coming to ever, right? It's the first time there's going to be that many teams. It's the first time it's going to be in 3 different countries. And I get a chance to help be a part of that. I get a chance to be someone who can say 50 years from now that I helped put together the World Cup that came to Canada, that I led communication working group with people in Toronto, in Vancouver, in Ontario, in BC, in FIFA Canada. I can say I wrote a letter personally to the president of FIFA. I can say I wrote a letter for the deputy minister. I can say I wrote the MC notes when Justin Trudeau was there and we had a Team Canada celebration. I can say I worked for the Raptors. I can say I worked for the Maple Leaf. But again, I'm not special. I just knew what I wanted and I had a dream and I chased it. And that's what I try to tell kids. It's what's your why? What's your why? My why was I wanted to make my mom proud, and I saw how sports was powerful in my community, and I wanted to use sports to teach young people that we don't have to put our head down if we don't come professional. There's so many different avenues. You could be a coach, you could be a scout, you could be a manager, you could be an agent, you could be a broadcaster, and you can still be a part of sports. I've been a part of sports since I was 18 years old till today, and I love every single part of it. And again, all that was because I knew my why. So if you can get anything from my message is what's your why? What's your why? Where do you want to go? And what's your dream? We're in North America. Everything is possible here. And my mom always instilled that to me. She'd be like, everything's possible. Shoot high. Like you're going to make it. And mama, I made it. So that's my story. There's so much more from when I graduated. I went to Humber College. My first day at Humber College, I was hired by the athletic department to write about the basketball team. I traveled with them. I got paid to travel with the basketball team in Humber and write about them and got my hotel paid for, my flight paid for. All I had to do was watch their game and write an article after. And my storytelling kept growing to the point where when I finished Humber, I took a first trip to Kinshasa, Congo. And I always told myself as a young kid, the first time I go to Africa, I want to make an impact. And I got a chance to do a documentary in Congo. I did a basketball documentary. I toured the city. I interviewed different players, different coaches, with hopes to just bring more awareness to the love that Congolese people have, that Africans have for the game of basketball, to tell the world that they need more support, they need more infrastructure, they need more trainings, they need more coaching, they need more referees, because we're the future, right? Africa has a youth population that outweighs the grown people. Like the majority of people in Africa are youth. So for me, it was like, okay, how do I bring hope to these youth? And just bringing a camera, letting them know I'm from Canada, that I'm a scout, that, I may not guarantee them that I'll get them to the other side in Canada or the United States, but I can help them. And it warmed my heart when someone from Congo messaged me and he's like, hey, coach, I don't know if you remember me. You spoke to my team. I just wanted to let you know I got a scholarship in the States. And those little things, that's what it means the most to me. You know what I mean? It's not about where I work, what I do. It's about who could I impact, who could I change their life. And that's my mission. That's why I say I'm a high performance culture coach, because I try to change the culture. I try to change young people to let them know that have a dream, have a purpose, understand what's your why. I remember even in the government when I worked for Sport Canada's FIFA team. I go there wearing Jordan sometime, wearing earrings as a way to empower young people that comes from similar backgrounds that I come from, that, you don't need to switch up to make it. A lot of young people think that like they can't make it because they don't want to wear suits or they don't want to look a certain way. And I tell them that like, hey, look at me, like I'm a professional person, but I can still relate to you guys, to come as you are. Just be educated, be respectful, work hard, and just leave a good impression on people, and your work will speak for itself. So I really hope my story inspired you guys. And shout out to the Humora Association, to the Community TV, and Joshua and Mike for putting this together, and Pascal. And I hope you guys get inspired. I also wrote a book during my journey. So if you guys get a moment, You can find it on Amazon. It's called Not Yet, a memoir of redemption, sports, and chasing dream, where I share my story, I share my struggles in school, and I shared my blueprint that allowed me to get my dream job working in sports. So if you're a young person out there that wants to know how to dream, how to find a purpose, or is interested in sports, but the business side of sports, this is a perfect read for you. And I hope you guys get inspired, and I appreciate y'all, man, and peace and blessings to everybody.